Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Okay, we're back here. Chelek Gimel, Perek Tes. We're on Daf Kuf Chav Daled. At the top of the Amud Amnam. We were talking about how shira zimra, the singing on Shabbos, is very unique because we can't express certain things. There's a whole introduction that the Pinkus writes over here that he takes from his Sefer Sharim B'Tfilah about the difference between shira and zimra, and how Shabbos is an expression of zimra. Zimra is an expression of song without words. That sometimes when we're going to say a niggin, we don't have any words to it. The niggin can get to places in a person's insides, in his emotions, in his soul, that the words can't reach. You can express things through a niggin that you can't express through words. So here let's go back to the first paragraph over here. Al Kain Shabbos hi kula yom shel zimra. Shabbos is a day of zimra. Shabbos is a day of song without words. Because Shabbos is above our feelings, of our ability to grasp. The kedusha of Shabbos is the kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself coming into the world. We can't put that into words. And therefore, the kedusha of Shabbos is compared to zimra, which is a lashon of being able to express something without words. Me'ein Olam Haba. Masha neshama margisha v'halev meivin b'Shabbos, something that the neshama can feel and the heart can understand, but ein koach b'peh la'omro, but yet we can't express it. V'lo b'leiv lahasigo alburav, and we can't really grasp what that means. V'lachein oiskin harbe b'zimra. That's why we have zmirot. Now, obviously, on Shabbos, it's not just nigunim. We say words. Whenever we sing zmiros, there are words in the zmiros. We'll see as we move on. And specifically, there's a parak of Tehillim called Mizmor Shir L'yom HaShabbos, right? So the Mizmor is the zimra where we're starting off with just song, a music without words, and then it goes into shira, which does express words. So how does that make sense? If Shabbos is just we can't express it. If it's so great, let's see what he says. Amnam. Ma shmiyuchedet kabbalas Shabbos lezimra nivar al pi chidush yofe shemati l'pnei shanim rabos megon Rav Mordechai Ginsburg migdoyle mir says.
I think.
I don't know.
Maybe the
I don't know. But the Rav Ginsburg from which Ginsburg? What Ginsburg did you say?
I believe the Ginsburg.
From Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. Could be. If it's from the Gedolei Mir, it could be. The Meiser of Mordechai Ginsburg, he quotes here, he says a nice chiddush. And what is that? The day of death, pitom comes like crazy, like so fast. No. Sometimes people are sick before they pass away. And really, even though that is very, very difficult, to a certain degree, there's a toiva in that allows the family to get used to the idea that this person might die, and it kind of softens the blow. When somebody dies suddenly, like totally unexpectedly, not only is there's a loss, but there's such a shock that it's very difficult for people to process that sometimes. So to a certain degree, the illness is a type of chesed to the person themselves and to the family, that they getting themselves ready, emotionally ready, spiritually ready, to move on to the next world. To a certain degree, if a person knows that their time is coming close, they have time to do tshuva. They have time to say vidui. They have the ability to try to make sure that what happens with their physical things don't cause machlokes, and different things that a person can do before they pass away in order to make sure that things that what happens after they pass away will leave a good impression on whoever they're leaving behind. However, nobody is prepared for the exact moment of death. Nobody's prepared. Just in the last couple of months, I myself had two experiences where family members passed away, and they were both shocking. It happened so fast and was totally unexpected. Totally. Even though both of them were sick. But still, even if you're sick, in a second, boom, it's gone. That's what he says. That Yom Misa Shepitomuba. It's maybe because a person never really thinks that they're going to die, even though everybody in the world dies, right? If we don't have the Eliyahu Hanavi here, maybe Shuban Levi. Yeah, maybe there are a couple of people in the history of the world, or the billions and billions and trillions. I don't know how many people there were in the history of the world. They all died, right? Maybe Chanoch, Eliyahu Hanavi, and the Shuban Levi, who Chazal say jumped into Gan Eden without dying. Serach Bas Asher lived a very long time, but it doesn't say that she lived forever. Right? There are three maisim that we know that Chazal bring that they were taken in a way, or that they never died. Right? It says about Chanoch that according to Chazal, Chanoch actually turned into a malach. Chanoch, who lived before the Mabul. And then there's Eliyahu Hanavi, he's very famous. Eliyahu Hanavi was taken up and is still circling the globe, going to Brisim every day, and will be here to bring in Mashiach. And then there's a medrash that talks about Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who had a little walk with, I don't remember, maybe it was the Malach HaMoves, and he tricked the Malach HaMoves, and he jumped into Gan Eden without dying. Right? But besides for those maisim, I don't believe, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there are others, Serach Bas Asher did live a very, very long life, according to at least believe it's Rashi in Sefer Shmuel, that talks about her still living during the times of David HaMelech, which would make her extremely, extremely long life, about at least 600 years. But again, that she lives forever, I don't know. The Maise, when a person dies, it's sudden. Hari bishlam ala anoshim ka'archenu boy, right? Shapir have ze pitom behesech hadas. It happens very quickly. You know, we're not paying attention. About tzedikei olam, yeah. People like he says, like us, yeah. The hamoin am, you know. Maybe we just not paying enough attention to our lives. But at tzaddik, the tzadikei olam, they're waiting every second of their lives. They're preparing themselves. They're preparing themselves every day. I think it says about one of the Gaonim during the times of the Gaonim. Maybe it was Rav Sadia Gaon. I don't remember 100%, but I think maybe it was Rav Sadia Gaon who said that he did Shuvah that day for not being as big of an Eved Hashem that yesterday as he is today. Right? And it says about Rebbe Lezer that you should do tshuva every day, because you don't know the day you're going to die. So you should do tshuva every single day. These people were preparing every single day of their life for their death. Every single day. So how does it happen for them? Pitom. How does that happen so quickly like that? How did that happen? So he says, that's the Mishnah that I just quoted. You should do tshuva the day before you die, which means do tshuva every day, because you have to be prepared. Al gedola tzadikim ad kama va'ad heichan hayu muchanim b'chol rega likras ha'achris. We have so many stories about the gedolim who were preparing themselves, but they were preparing themselves every day b'chol rega for the end. Lama im ken muchach she'eh pitom. How could it be that it happened so suddenly? Harei yitochin she'eh adrabah mitoch ha'chana derabah. It should be that they are prepared. How can you say it so suddenly? V'amar Zal, so Chazal tell us, she'oisu hamavir bein chayim lechayim hu kol kach noira, she'ad kama she'adam yachin atzmo la'olam yebze pitom. The incredible switch between the life in this world and moving on to the life in the next world, that change is so awesome. It is so extreme that no matter how much you prepare, you will never really be fully prepared. Right in the middle. It's impossible to be prepared for that, as much as we try to do. And the truth of the matter is that a person, specifically in times like that we're living in, where unfortunately we hear all the time about young people dying, whether people dying in war or people dying in attacks or different things like that. Obviously a person should be sad about that, But a person should also take that as an inspiration. You know what? How do we know? How do we know when's going to be our time? We got to work. We got to spend every day. We got to really put in the effort. I remember many years ago when there was a boy who was affiliated to the yeshiva, passed away. He was very sick. I believe he was either 18 or 19 years old. And he passed away, and a lot of the Bachrim from the yeshiva, they went to the Levaya, and I told one of the Bachrim specifically, who needed a little wake-up call, I said, when you're there, make sure you go right up to the kever. Go right up. Here in Eretz Yisrael, they don't bury in a coffin. They're buried directly in the ground. Yeah, maybe they're wrapped up. You can't see them, but you can see that there's a body there. Not like there's in a box, so you're just putting the box in the ground. There's a person. You can see that there's a shape of a body. Go right up to the kever. See, they're putting the kever into the ground, and then everybody. It's a big mitzvah. Everybody should try to shovel in. Yeah, put a little bit of dirt. Everybody should try to do that. But think about it. One day that's going to be me. One day it's going to be me because it happens to everybody. So that change is so incredible. That move is so big. A person should be inspired or should have fear. That's going to be me. What am I doing to prepare for that? What am I doing in this world to prepare for that? Because it's such an extreme feeling, right? A person will say, yes, I prepared for this. I prepared my whole life. I didn't waste time. I worked for my Olam Haba. But to that, when you get to that point, you see, it wasn't enough. I wasn't truly prepared for this. I wasn't really prepared to move on to the next world. It still remains in the status of like a shock. As prepared as we are, it still is a huge shock. How appropriate then is this comparison to Shabbos? Zimra, that we start off with zimiras. Shabbos tomid nichnezes pitomit b'hafta'ah. Not that a person should wait till the last second to be ready for Shabbos, and somehow I'm always late. It doesn't matter if it's in the winter, where Shabbos starts at 3:58, 9 or 3:58, or in the summer, where Shabbos starts at 7:12. Somehow it's always pitomit. And that's not what it means. What it means is that Shabbos comes in so suddenly, like that, just so quick. Yes, a person can bring in Shabbos early, and they should. A person should say at least a few minutes before Shabbos really starts, before Shkia. Women obviously should be lighting candles way before that and accepting Shabbos in that way. They have Tosefet Shabbos. But even a man who maybe still has to daven mincha, and he's daven mincha chol, he hasn't accepted Shabbos yet, at a certain point, a few minutes before Shkia, should say, I accept upon myself Kedusha Shabbos. Should. But even when that happens, it's like a boom, there's a rush. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he created the world, he was still creating things on Bein Hashmashos. We don't know at what point on Bein Hashmashos the day turns, which is why Bein Hashmashos is a suffix time. Is it day, is it night? We don't know 100%, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. And because of that, he was still able to create things during Bein Hashmashos, and it still wasn't Shabbos yet. And there's a whole list of things in the Mishnah, in Avos, about the things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created on Erev Shabbos, Bein Hashmashos. And then, boom, Shabbos. That's it, the end of creation. It happened so fast. In the blink of an eye, that's what happens. We don't even realize it. That's how Shabbos comes into Metzias. Even if we don't necessarily experience it, because we do what we're supposed to do when we accept Shabbos early. But when the actual day changes from day to night, and now, even though we accepted Kedusha Shabbos before that, the actual Shabbos comes in, it comes in b'hafta'ah, boom. Even if we were preparing all week, and certainly we were preparing on Friday, certainly we were preparing for Shabbos. Because you can call Yom HaShiva, we were doing all this preparation on Shabbos, on Friday. We were waiting. We set the table. We cleaned up. We did sponge. We cooked. We got everything ready for Shabbos. We showered, we changed, we put on our Shabbos begod, and we did everything in order to get ready for Shabbos. But when Shabbos actually come in, nichneses a Shabbos, we thrust into a whole new world. When the Shechinah comes in, it's a completely different experience. The kol Yehudi for every Jew shelo shayach litkonen lezeh klal. Then we can't truly be prepared for that. And because of that feeling, ma'abidim et koyach hadibur poschim bezimra. That's why we can't speak at that point. The only thing we can only express through song. Like we discussed last time, song is incredibly powerful. That it can express things beyond what we can say. V'zehu Mizmor Shir L'yom HaShabbos. That's what it means. Mizmor Shir L'yom HaShabbos. We're starting with the Mizmor. The Mizmor is the song without words because there are no words. Take up im knisas Shabbos tosefes rakshut shel Mizmor. The beginning of Shabbos is this feeling of Mizmor va'achar kach shira. And only after that shira where we can bring in the words. She'ein dai rak lizamer, because we can't just stop with this hitrakshut, this awesome feeling of Hashem coming into our world. We're coming into Hashem's world. But the whole Shabbos long, we have to try our best to translate those feelings into words. We have to try to take that, make it part of ourselves, and express it. But it's against our will that we start with Mizmor, that we start with not being able to express it. Kol seder Kabbalah Shabbos habi shira v'zimra. The entire acceptance of Shabbos is this combination of shira and zimra. Sherega Kabbalah hu rega ayom benoira shein koyach bepel oymar enor osoi. The moment that Shabbos comes in, we cannot express it. Now this minhag that we do, we have shira, who applies to everybody. Right? So I think most kehilas in the world come into Shabbos with some kind of song, at least lechadoidi.
I mean, the Kvatalo.
Yeah, okay. Different minhagim. I'm not going to know which minhag. Everybody can try to join the kehila that they feel is the best suited for them personally to enjoy. I know here in Shari Tzvila we enjoy the singing of on Kabbalah Shabbos. Some people like it more. Some people like to dance even. Yeah. So of course everybody should ask the Rav about what kind of dancing. If you just do like the shuffle, then maybe it's not called dancing. The Maisa, do we really experience this shock at the beginning of Shabbos? So for some people we might say, no, this is a little bit hard. Like I don't really experience that. I don't experience it. Well, then what? It sounds really nice. It sounds really great, but I don't experience this. Like, what can we do about this? So let's see what he says. To finish off the parak. Minhag ashira b'Shabbos kvar nagu b'zeh kol Yisrael. This minhag of singing coming into Shabbos is a minhag of all Klal Yisrael. Yeah, they different places do different things. What was described over here, people who actually can experience that, we're talking about very high level. Very, very high level, true tzaddikim. That their faces lit up. They lit up like fire. Like the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbos about Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai, when Shabbos came in, he looked like a malach. He looked like an angel. That's what it means to experience Shabbos the moment Shabbos comes in. Misaper mal Kodesh Kadosh Yisrael Abram ben Abram Zuchus Yagen Aleinu Ger Tzedek me Vilna. The Ger Tzedek, the famous Ger Tzedek, the Ger from Vilna who lived at the same time as the Vilna Goin, and he died al Kiddush Hashem when they caught him for being Megayer, was a Christian and became a Jew, considered to be a capital crime, and he was murdered because of what he did. Yeah, he was a very, very, like a baron or something, a count or something like that. He was a very, very chashuv person, and the Vilna Goin had a close relationship with him. It says about him, Avram ben Avram, the Ger Tzedek, Shahaya Oimer, he says, Eini mesugel lahavin eich Yehudi. I can't understand how a Jew, shenoilad la'av Yehudi, who's born a Jew, Ve'ima Yudia, both of his parents are Jewish. V'hu mitzetza Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. And he's a child of the Obbos HaKadoshim, Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov. Yochel b'mitziach l'sbolas kedushas knisas Shabbos kodesh. You understand how we can even survive the kedusha of Shabbos, of the Shechinah coming in? How is it even possible? How is it possible that we don't die on the spot? Just like it says that a person can't see Hashem. If you would see Hashem, you would die on the spot. You couldn't. We can't. Why would a person die on the spot? Because his soul would be so enraptured by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it would just leave his body. There would be no way for the soul to still remain connected to the body. The person would just die. He can't. Which is why, maybe also why, that when we got the Torah, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Anochi Hashem, Chazal say all of Klal Yisrael died. And then they had to have Tchias HaMesim. And then he says the next mimer, and they died again, and they had to have Tchias HaMesim again, and they said, well, we gotta stop this. Moshe, you get the Torah for us. We can't handle this. Because the experience of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like that is so incredible. How could a person live? And that's exactly what the Ger Tzedek is saying over here. He doesn't understand. A Jew who was born a Jew, he's a child of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, and he experiences the Shechinah coming in on Shabbos, the Kedusha Shabbos, ve'einish masul parachas mimenu, and his soul doesn't fly out. Mishal hebetz HaKedusha al-Boaz b'kirbo, from that fire that's burning in him, by that experience of welcoming in the Shechinah. Aval anan, that's talking about great tzaddikim. Aval anan, but we, maneni abasrei, what can we say for ourselves? V'chi'anu shaychim la'oimek noirazu. Are we connected to this? Many of us can say we have a hard time experiencing it. Sometimes, the singing on a Friday night really inspires people. But can we say ad kedei kach that we can't even express it in words? Maybe there's some people like that, but for a lot of people it's not. What are we supposed to do? Amnam kemo b'chol davar shebikdusha anu noigim b'seudah minhagim. Just like in every area of Torah, mitzvahs, kedusha, we go based on our minhagim. Mipnei haragshim sheyesh b'klalos beis Yisrael, sheknisas Yisrael b'klalosam v'adai she'adayin chai v'kayim behem kol madrega v'chol oimek k'mekoidim. These things still exist, even though we don't necessarily experience them in actuality all the time, or maybe even ever. But it doesn't mean that they don't exist. We need to We need to work on ourselves to make ourselves more sensitive to ruchnius. But it doesn't mean we should stop keeping these minhagim. These minhagim are part of what the real metzius in the world is. Like he said at a different time, Rav Pinkus says, maybe it's in Shari Mitzvili, he says that when a person is standing in Shemona Esrei, he is mamish with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whether he realizes it or not, whether he's paying attention or not, he's actually standing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the metzius. So even if you don't realize that he's there, he is. Even though you realize that you're talking to him, you are. Even though you don't realize he's listening to you, he is. He's there, regardless of whether you realize it or not. So it's the same thing here. This is happening in real life. We're not experiencing it. There's something missing. There's something wrong with us. We need to work on ourselves. I heard an interesting mashal to this. The mashal was that I think it was somebody went to Rav Shach. He came to Rav Shach. And he said that he doesn't find learning Torah enjoyable. He just doesn't. He tries to learn it, and it's hard, and he just doesn't like it. So Rav Shach said to him, "Let me ask you a question: Is honey sweet? Is honey sweet? Is it sweet? Yeah, honey is sweet. It is. That's the mitzvah. Honey is sweet. That's just the way it is. That's the essence, part of what honey is." So if somebody eats honey and they say it's not sweet, it's just not sweet. So how do you explain that? How do you explain it when somebody says something like that? He said, you know how you explain it? He said, there's something wrong with your mouth. Because the honey is sweet. It is. But maybe you have some pitzoim in your mouth. Maybe you have some kind of illness in your mouth. Maybe you have dirt in your mouth. Maybe you have some problem in your mouth. But it doesn't change the fact that the honey is sweet. That's the way the Metzias is. That's what it is. You can't say that it's not. That's the way the Torah is. If it's not sweet for you, it means you need to work on yourself. It means there's something wrong within you. You need to fix that, and then it will be sweet. It's the same thing over here. This is true. Why are we not experiencing it? Maybe we need to work on ourselves a little bit more. Every person should try their best. And we have to really put this into our hearts and try to put into our heads, this is what Shabbos is. And a lot of this is, when we come into Shabbos, think about it. We discussed about what is our avodah on Shabbos. We discussed how a person has to work on his emunah on Shabbos. Has to think about, we say it on Friday night 3 times. Person has to think Hashem created the world. We have to be mechazik in our emunah. We have to be mechazik in the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that He has no gvulos. That's what our job is on Shabbos. We can't just come into Shabbos tired and fall asleep. We can't just do that. We have to focus on the avodah of Shabbos. The more a person does that, the more they connect to Shabbos. Will they ever reach this level? Maybe. Maybe some people will. Each one on their own medrega. Maybe we won't reach the level of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai that it says he was like a malach. But each person in their own way can connect much deeper. When Shabbos comes in, there's a special feeling that comes in. Maybe it's not that boom that he describes in this parak, but he's just telling you how high a person, how I could reach. Be'ez Hashem, the more effort a person puts in, the more he's going to get out of it. Well,
thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.